behind the scenes with lunch conversations with Randy and Teddy. Got Dave and Dara Feldman with us. Promise you this will be an absolutely fantastic conversation, because Dave and Dara have already opened up both barrels of their shotgun on me already this morning.
We're about peace, Teddy. Peace. We didn't bring any shotguns. Sorry.
Paintballs.
That's for creativity.
Hey, I gotta ask you, what's the snow accumulation where you guys are? How much did you?
3, maybe?
I think it was about 5 total over 2 days. It's probably down to about 3 now. But yeah, it was, for us, it was a nice little snowstorm.
Feet or inches?
What's that?
I say feet or inches.
Inches. We're not in Alaska.
Oh, good.
Was it enough for one of you to send the other out to clean off the sidewalk?
No, he took the initiative.
He took the initiative.
You see?
So very helpful, my husband.
We were on a podcast recently, and they were taunting us. It's like, so who's the boss? Who's really the boss? Like,
Lord, I saw that look.
Just wait, honey. Just wait. We'll talk later. Call on patience. That is today's virtue. Remember,
we're
give all our secrets away.
We're 100% public. We have 11,000 people watching us live.
I love it.
Hey, everybody, what's for lunch?
Yeah, we'll get there. Oh, yeah, that's a good question, Randy. We never asked that.
No, we haven't. But what about sleep? Did our guests get enough sleep to make it through the show today without lunch?
We'll just have to surprise you and see.
Okay.
Fake it till you make it.
If I see an elbow fly like that over towards Dave,
now if you're coming this way.
I'm a good sleeper. I have no issue sleeping, so that's not a problem.
He's got the clear conscience.
Yeah. Kensington, it's Kensington, Maryland. That's Montgomery County, right?
Yes.
Correct. It's,
I remember that.
Between Bethesda and Rockville, generally.
Yep. So I'm from Poolesville. I was born and raised in Barnesville, and I used to drive a race car, a 66 Chevy 2, up and down the streets, up and down 355.
That's right where we live. You know where Hank Deedles is, right?
What? Who?
Hank Deedles? Hanks?
Oh, it's been 25 years.
It's the oldest. It's the oldest bar in Montgomery County. It's a roadhouse. It was actually in the late 1800s. It was a stopping ground going from Washington D.C. like you're going toward Baltimore. And after Prohibition, it was the first place to get its liquor license back. So, and it's in walking distance from where we live. So it's a pretty good historic place. It burned down about 4 years ago, and it just came back on.
Dave, you should never tell me where you live.
You don't know where I live. You just know I live near a bar.
Okay, but now so does the rest of the world, honey. And also a coffee shop, Java Nation. They're awesome.
Yeah. So it's 11:59. We're doing good. We got 20,000 people on here. Randy, are you doing well, buddy? You and I haven't talked in hours.
I put on a little sunscreen because it looks to be sunny out there today. So you never know, I might get a little sunburn. But no, doing well, and excited to have our guest on today. One of the and I've said this many times, but it's so cool. It's almost like having this free lunch and learn where we can bring in the topics that we want and help drive that conversation and walk away with more knowledge and some things we can take action on. So
now,
excited.
I want to hear what Dave and Dara have to say, but you never told me I could bring in the speakers I want.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work on some tact. Maybe we got to change that.
And what was the topic today? What are we talking about?
All right, it's high noon, and we're rolling. So let's get this party started. Are we good, ladies and gentlemen? Hey, everybody. I'm Teddy Burriss. I work for a company called Burriss Consulting. We're social media strategists teaching LinkedIn as a business tool. And me and my good buddy, Mr. Randy Wooden, got together 43 some odd weeks ago and said, hey, man, let's do lunch together from now on. Was that the exact words? Maybe not the exact words.
It was close. I'll tell you again, Randy Wooden. I work with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina. I run our professional center. So if you have friends or you yourself, whatever, that are professionals, I don't care where you live, you can find me on LinkedIn, but we're happy to help. We're free. And one of the many things that we do at our center is, group events. And this has kind of taken the place of those group events once COVID hit. But yeah, I gave Teddy a call and said, Goodwill sent me home, Teddy. Anyway, I said, why don't we have some fun? Because Teddy and I are kind of two peas in a pod, or whatever you want to call it. And so we did, and had a lot of fun, and thought, wouldn't it be better if we brought in some smart people? Because I mean, who wants to listen to us all day? So that's how it all got started. Teddy, I'll throw it back to you to introduce our guests, and let's get this party started. All right.
Absolutely. So, I reached out. Dave and I met, I don't know, a couple, 3 or 4 months ago. I had a great conversation. And I'm like, dude, I need your help, man. I said, I'd love for you to bring your conversations, your ideas to our lunch show that we do every week. And Dave immediately wrote up this huge contract for me. No, Dave immediately said, absolutely. So, and before I get started, a little housekeeping, Randy. I've got the housekeeping, buddy.
Yeah.
So look, Randy's going to monitor the chat. Randy does not monitor Q&A. He monitors chat. So if you have a question, a thought, an idea that you'd like to bring forward to Dave and Dara, then drop it in chat and Randy will share it with you. So please do that. We are recording this live. It's on you. It'll be on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anywhere else so we can put it so people can see it. So please monitor, share and chat. So look, I met Dave years ago, and I discovered that their business is called Virtues Matter. Dave reminded me, Teddy, don't oversay the word. It's Virtues Matter. It's that simple and it's that deliberate. You know, and it's all about helping people not only find their joy, but live their joy in a meaningful and purposeful way in life and career and business and in community. Mm-hmm. Dara's a speaker, very well-known speaker, teacher of the year. I just got that, 2015.
2005.
2005 Disney Outstanding Elementary Teacher of the Year. That's pretty cool. That's acknowledgement by really cool people. They have a Virtues Matter app that's really easy to get and really easy to use. And I have it on my cell phone and look at it regularly. But besides me sharing with you who Dave and Dara Feldman is of Virtues Matter, would you two introduce yourself to our friends?
Well, thank you for both of you for your enthusiastic, warm welcome. Take it away, baby.
Yeah. So just a little bit about my background. I've been in business all my life. I've had some businesses. I've worked for other businesses. Came from the tech sector. Kind of took a ride up and a ride down. I think I was worth 10 million on paper one day, and then I wasn't, which was interesting. Had a fascinating job for years at the British Embassy in Washington, D.C., helping U.S. businesses set up in the U.K. and British businesses export to the U.S. And through that, I did some work around community and economic development and found sustainability. And I set up a business hub, a green business incubator here in Bethesda, Maryland, which was part education center, part community center, part job creation. Work with a lot of small businesses and people who are whether looking for jobs and things like that. And then I'll kind of round about, but then I end up joining my wife, who had been doing a lot of work in the virtues area, and we came together in 2019 to do Virtues Matter. So I would love for Dara to share her story, because she comes from a totally different world. We kind of came together and bring together a whole set of complementary skill sets.
Yeah, thanks, baby, for your thoughtfulness, passing the talking piece. I just want to say, hey, John Manuel, Marlene, and Cindy, welcome, welcome. So my background, ever since I was 8, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So I taught elementary school students for the majority of my career, about 20 years. I was also an instructional technology specialist in the 90s and did a little professional development for Apple and helped write The Power of the Internet for Learning under President Clinton. And about 15 years ago, as a result of the Disney honor, I found out about the Virtues Project, which we'll talk about a little bit, 5 strategies for bringing out the best in ourselves and others. And it really sent me on this deep dive into character, social emotional learning, restorative practices, and restorative justice. And it was really in alignment with my own healing. And I knew that I had to share it with others. So I left teaching. I ended up volunteering my time to the founders of the Virtues Project for 7 years as director of education, and then turned the Virtues Project into a nonprofit. I've been consulting primarily in education, but in other ways around the world. And then when Dave is like, honey, how about if I join you and we develop an app? I'm like, well, the app's been around since 2009 and there's so much more to it than just the app, but sure. And I'm going to start with the end in mind. And over the past 2 years working with Dave, he's helped to get the Virtues to go viral and this work out there in ways that I certainly couldn't do by myself. And I think what it's done for us has been really, really powerful, both in business and personal. And that's what I hope we get to share with you all today.
Yeah, and just one last point, then what it leads to is, one of my lessons learned, which Dara alluded to, is, doing this kind of work, it's about who you are. And that's really about when you're job seeking as well. People aren't hiring always for what you do, although that's a important part of it. It's about who you are as an individual. And that's been kind of a journey for me and learning. So that's a little bit about what we do and just,
Good deal. Hey, for those that are on the call today, if you don't mind, go ahead and chat in the chat box. Where are you watching us from? We usually get people from coast to coast. We've had them from Italy and other countries as well. So we're always curious, where are you watching from? So there's High Point. There's, I think also Winston is the part in there. We've got Kernersville, Maryland and Wahlberg.
Wahlberg.
The metropolis of Wahlberg. So while the folks
Wahlberg was on the news last night, Randy.
Oh,
it was a good thing. It was about economic development.
I got you. Hey, and that reminds me, next week's guest, we'll talk more about that, but it'll be about economic development here in the Triad. So I always ask our guest each week, we start off the show, and that's the why question. Why do you do what you do? Was it a moment in time? Was it a series of moments, experiences? But why are you doing what you do today?
May I start with this one?
I would love for you to start.
I think our whys are a little bit different. So my why is because of some trauma that happened when I was younger, and my third grade teacher who loved me at a time when I felt unlovable, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. And then as I worked on my own healing as an adult, I thought that everybody could benefit from some healing in their life. And when I found the 5 strategies of the Virtues Project, it was like, oh, this is something that could be offered to everyone as a way to elevate themselves. And I just knew the defining moment was I was on a boat in the middle of Disneyland with the overall Disney Teacher of the Year, David Vixie. And I said, David, what in your repertoire speaks to you the most? And he pulled out a card with all these virtues on them and on it and a website. And I just knew, like, that's what I was put on earth to do, is helping people to remember, to know and remember their inherent nobility. And yes, working in prisons and helping people to remember who they are. I love doing work in prisons because I get to go and say, y'all didn't get there on your own. And as an educator, in part, I'm here to help make amends because you were not being honored in the way that you needed to be honored and maybe guided in the way that you needed to be guided. So it's healing work for me and it's uplifting and meaningful work.
Yeah. And my why is quite different, actually. As I was saying, I kind of found the world of community and economic development, sustainability. And I found this whole path of social entrepreneurship. I started absorbing books about both doing well and doing good. I think business has the power to change the world. And if you put the right parameters around business is just an irreconcilable force. And, after doing a lot of work in sustainability for a while, I saw the work that Dara was doing. And it's like, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's like, who you are. Sometimes you don't understand. It's like, we all live on the planet. You wouldn't trash your own home. But why don't people do sometimes what's in their own best interest? So I started really understanding what makes people behave and what brings out the best in yourself and others. And as Dara likes to laugh, when I first started, we were redoing a mobile app, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to be in the app development business. That's kind of where I'm starting. And I knew it was more than that, but I didn't really kind of know what I was getting myself into. So it's been a journey where we're doing online courses and a whole range of things, but it's, my world is about making a better world. I mean, at the end of the day, cut it short, it's like, making a good living and making the place where we all live better and working with good people.
I like the way you think, and Dara led with it and Dave added to it. Look, at the end of the day, we only get one journey. As far as I know, we only get one journey. So why don't we figure out the best way to enjoy it while also providing value to others. That's my mantra that I live by. All right, let's take this and let's just have these discussions about this whole idea. So look, the business is called Virtues Matter. And I'm looking at people who are in job search and career transition, and their character plays a role in the right kind of connections. Can you tie the words virtues and character together for me? Can you help us with that?
Absolutely. So virtues are just universal positive qualities of character, right? Character, we have character traits that can be positive, negative, or neutral. And the virtues are those positive qualities. However, when they're out of balance, they may not be used in a positive way.
Got it.
You can have too much of a single virtue. You can have too much, perseverance if you're not balanced by patience or things like that. So, they are guiding lights. But as Dara was saying, they're these universal qualities that are, in all religions, sacred texts, cultures, and things like that. It's things like honesty or integrity or commitment or excellence or things as such.
And when they get out of balance, they can become vices, right? And so also they can be really annoying. So I don't know anybody that has too much enthusiasm, but I could really drive you insane if I don't learn how to balance it with moderation, self-discipline, and discernment, etc. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have to temper / manage my enthusiasm, my desire to go do things that are out there that are wild and bizarre. And for 43 years, I've had a coach that's helping me to do that.
I got a coach too, the same coach.
So awesome loyalty and steadfastness and patience from your coach's perspective. And folks who are on, who have joined us for lunch, I'd love for you to put in the chat box, what's your strength virtue? One that when people think about you, they're like, oh, they're so blank. And maybe how does it serve you? And how does it get you in trouble? Okay, we'll just stay on the high. How does it serve you?
Yeah, but we got to pay attention to which virtues and characters that we have that get us in trouble. We have to manage that. We can't ignore that. I'm with you.
And that's self-awareness, right? So there's this also factors into character and then social emotional learning or emotional intelligences. And so self-awareness helps to lead us to self-management or self-discipline, which is actually another virtue. And all of this works together.
Yeah, and Teddy, one of the things when you look at the virtues, and there's one of the decks on the virtues cards is the name of the app. There's a reflection cards, which are my favorite. They're the ones that are really deep. There's 100 different virtues there, and we like to look at them in the areas. It's like, oh, I don't look at myself and say, oh, I'm not really patient, or it's not about a judgment, but we talk about them whether they're strength virtues or growth virtues. And strength virtues is just who you are. Both of us, it sounds like several of us, are enthusiastic as our strength. My growth virtue, it's not a weakness, it's a growth virtue. I'm working on it, is patience. And so and you apply them in different ways in your life. But we're on this continuous path of life. I mean, we're always challenging our virtues in different areas and different situations that differ.
And to just give a practical strategy on how we can develop patience, especially for those of you who are looking, for jobs or changing careers. It's called Pause, Breathe, and Smile, PBS. Just you take a pause, you take a breath, and then a light smile. And it actually gives you a little hit of dopamine, right? A little serotonin, so that you're able to access your prefrontal cortex and also give you an opportunity to think and respond instead of react. And I see Cindy said, what about values? That's a really purposeful question. So we have virtues and values. All virtues can be values, but not all values are virtues, because values are what people, organizations, institutions, countries, etc., think are important. So thinking about what are some of those non-qualities of character that are important to people? Family, time, right? It may be technology, power, money. Okay, shouldn't have made a judgment with that.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know. So anyways, clearly, right. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So before we go to the next question, let's talk about this a little bit. I get it. I absolutely understand our virtues, our character, our values, they all matter in life. And we have to be self-aware of what they are so that we're managing them in the best possible way and creating value with what we bring to the table. But let's take and drive this a little tighter around job seekers. So, I mean, if you look at employers, when they're hiring, what kind of virtues are employers looking to hire people with? They're not looking to only, we talked about this before, they're not just looking for someone who knows how to hit a chisel with a hammer, because anybody can be taught to hit a chisel with a hammer. That's do the job. But what about the traits or the virtues that people have that when employers are looking for? How does that play?
So Teddy, that's a really important question, but I want to address a question that came up in the chat box, because I think if we do right now, it's going to help people maybe who bring some baggage along with the word virtues. So the question is, so how do I discuss my virtues when or during the interview? How do I demonstrate my virtue to a future employer and without it sounding like holier than thou? Right? So when I started doing this virtues project work 15 years ago, I actually asked the founders if they would change the name, because virtues was so triggering in certain environments, right? And so virtues are not, in our context, there's no religiosity. All it is are character strengths. So I encourage you to just look at it as character strengths. And when you're asked a question, right? So what are you good at? Or if somebody were going to describe you, people automatically go right to their virtues. I just had a former student, somebody call and say, hey, we're thinking about hiring this kid, Thomas. Can you tell me about them? And I started right with, he's super compassionate. He's really generous. He has a lot of enthusiasm. And so when you are sharing that in a job interview, right, when you're talking about yourself, don't just use those words. You want to give evidence as to how you are those things. So if you say that you're reliable, you're committed, you show up on time, you get things done when being asked to, right? If you're really creative or you're really empathetic, then give real examples of what that looks like. And on the flip side, people are also going to ask you, so, all right, what's an area of growth? And that too is probably going to be one of your growth virtues, right? Okay, I'll pause. You look like.
No, I'm with you. I'm sorry. I'm just relaxing on the table. So
no, that's good. That's good. So like we just talked about, enthusiasm are our strength virtues, and patience are virtues that we're working on. And so we're aware. And so some of the things that pretend that I'm in an interview. So something that I'm doing to help me to develop my patience is I'm doing a little bit of mindful practice, right? I use a strategy, PBS, so that I'm able to just get calm and respond in a more thoughtful and respectful way.
Yeah, and just, yeah, so one of the things that Dara was talking about, which is actually one of the strategies we talk about is, called speaking the language of virtues, is when do you use it and how do you give evidence? So, if you're applying for a sales job, for example, you can talk about being resilient and how you show resilience in your life. Well, if I'm hiring a salesperson, I want somebody who's resilient, because you're knocking on doors, you're committed, you have endurance, you have steadfastness, and giving those examples. If I'm a team leader, for example, what are the skills that are required for team leadership? Well, cooperation, how do you foster cooperation, or openness, or understanding that I listen to my people and things as such. So, there are ways of taking the virtues without calling it holier than thou virtues, but really talking about the skill sets and giving examples. And the words themselves actually have a lot of power. When you start talking about them in different ways, people want somebody who's shows perseverance or endurance in their jobs, and things as such. So those are powerful ways of using the words as well. And even when you talk about it from a growth standpoint, it's like I've got a lot of enthusiastic, but I'm calling a little bit of self-control sometimes. People are like, oh yeah, I can relate to that.
It's self-aware.
It's self-awareness. So those are just different ways of using it in the job search area.
And to piggyback, looking at Kevin's question is, all right, so how do you convey virtues on paper, like in a cover letter? Same thing. Don't just make a list. because anybody can pull a list off of a virtues card app, for example, but give the evidence. Show how you have, demonstrated courage in leading your organization through turbulent times, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and Joseph threw out that you should use this. There's a process called the STAR technique. I use one called PAR. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. So if you're going to talk about resilience, talk about demonstrate through a story how you get there. And if you're going to use PAR, PAR stands for problem, project, action, result. Same thing. You demonstrate your virtues through your actions, and whether you're writing them down on paper or having a real life conversation.
I'm glad you said that. I thought Joseph was talking to us when he said STAR. I'm like, thank you.
I thought he was talking to me. I thought he was talking to me. Then I realized.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm working on my humility.
And so actually, in all seriousness, this is really great, because STAR and PAR and meteors, STAR and PAR, those are actual practices.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you lead with the virtue, and we're going to do a virtues pick in a moment, it creates that elevation. It is a high frequency, a high energetic, higher self word, and it just shifts the energy. So would this be a good time maybe to do a virtues pick, or should I call my patients a little bit more?
Here's what I need to have two people who say they are willing to read a card for me. So let me see if I can do this.
So
I need
either
two
going to call
people.
on service or courage, or both.
Look, say it again.
No, so you're inviting people to either be of service,
Yep.
or if maybe they're a little bit nervous, but they're going to do it anyways, they get to call on their courage.
Yep. So I need two people just to say yes right now. Two people that are on our attendees. So Robin said yes. I'm gonna turn Robin's microphone on. I'm gonna allow Robin to talk, and I need the other one. Who's the other one? And Rose. Robin and Rose, you can unmute yourself. And Dave and Dara, you take it from here.
All right. So thank you both for your courage and generosity of service. Can you see the excellent card?
Yes.
All right, so Robin, since you took the initiative and said yes first, would you read the left side with the conch shell on it, please? And actually, as both of our friends are reading, for everybody to start thinking about how excellence connects with you around this whole job, the business of jobs. How about that?
Okay. Excellence. Excellence is giving your very best to any task we do and any relationship we have. Within us are many possibilities. Excellence hones our talents and turns them into gifts for the world. Excellence requires us to practice humility by learning from mistakes. Each time we do something, we seek to improve it, to keep raising the bar. Excellence is effort guided by a noble purpose. It is ongoing mastery. It flows when we are doing what we love. The perfection of a seed is the fruit that grows from it. Excellence in our lives brings our gifts to fruition.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
helpful service reading.
And then the back of the card
Or the right side?
or the right
Yes.
side. Yep.
I'm gonna pass this to Rose now.
Okay. When love and skill work together, expect a masterpiece. John Ruskin. The practice of excellence. I give my best to all that I do. I give my best to my relationships. I am a lifelong learner. I fulfill my true possibilities. I strive for mastery. I work with love. I am thankful for the gift of excellence. It is my true prosperity.
Thank you for your helpful service,
Yeah.
Rose and Robin. And so maybe since you both already unmuted, would one or both of you just like to share briefly what this card made you think or feel, or any way that it touched you?
Especially in relationship to a job, the job searching in that process as well.
You don't have to, only if you want to.
I think part of it made me think of how I need to think about the excellence and the good things that I have. And I think what you said before about what do you bring to the table? I think a lot of times it's very easy to fall into that, you know, this happened to me, I'm not good enough, or the whole imposter syndrome. And, you know, I've kind of been on that roller coaster for the last year or so. So, you know, that's kind of what it made me think of is, you know, you have to be, what's the word? You have to be deliberate in, you know, thinking about these things sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your openness sharing, and I hear your confidence that you do have lots to offer. So
Thank you.
Thank you for your openness sharing. Rose, did you want to share by any chance?
And ditto what Robin said, but I think, you know, just reading the words lifted my self-concept of, you know, I am worthy, I can do this. You know, I can get over the hump that I'm, you know, working through right now, and can get back out there and find a new opportunity, and realizing that I am strong, and those I am statements, you know, those are powerful.
Absolutely. Well, I hear your enthusiasm for the gifts that you have and the confidence that you have. And so we can open it up to others, but I just want us to, like, just these, we didn't write the cards, or I would be a little bit more humble at this moment, but the power of these words, like, disclaimer, be careful. If you read a card every day or right before you're going to go in for an interview, or, you know, in the evenings, not only will it change your language, it will change the lens in the way that you view the world, and it will also change you in the way that you show up.
Yeah, and I want to just go back to a question. I think it was Kevin who asked about, you know, how to convey this on paper. I had a job for a while where I was managing quite a few people. And, you know, I would know people that they would show up in different ways. They were being responsible or reliable, or they showed excellence. That was it. And, you know, I had to do a lot of reviews. I'm like, oh, excellence is giving our very best. Oh, wow. You give your very best to every task you do and every relationship you have. Oh, I mean, these are the powerful words. So even when you're writing a letter, you know, it just helps you kind of identify what your core strengths are and how to acknowledge that. And also, in some respects, goes back to what Kevin was saying as well. When you're writing a letter to a company, if you're looking for a job, look for their excellence. You know, point out to them where they are committed to a particular cause, or they're, you know, they've been responsible to the environment or to a particular stakeholder, something like that. Now, all of a sudden, they're getting acknowledged by these ways, and that's going to help you stand out in a way that really, really resonates with them. So that's a differentiator in some ways by using a powerful language.
Absolutely. Really wise discernment, honey. And when you send your thank you email or your thank you letter, use the language of virtues there, because that vibe, that's going to put you in the mind and the hearts of those people.
Hey, this is really good conversation. Again, Rose and Robin, thank you for jumping in and sharing. Look, this is Lunch Conversations with Randy Wooden and Teddy Burriss, and our special guests today are Dave and Dara Feldman of Virtues Matter. And the conversation is all about virtues and your character. And not only what is your character, but how can you present it in the best way possible in job search. So Dave and Dara, thank you very much. This is a great conversation. Let's move on to the next thing. The next thing is, you know, how can we take our virtues and cultivate them and maybe practice them and turn them into habits as we prepare for that interview and that job opportunity? What are your thoughts in cultivating and developing our virtues and our habits?
Yeah, there's a number of different ways. Dara actually will share some strategies, but I have one just that's really simple. I love acronyms. I'm always playing with acronyms. So one of the acronyms is called the PLAN. So we do these webinars, and at the end of this is like, okay, what's your next step? It's just like, follow the plan. So the P is pick daily. And it's the virtues cards. There's some really cool things that you can do in the virtues cards. You can see in here, you can actually do a random shake and a card comes up. You can double tap it and it flips to the back of the card. Whoops, there we go. And things like that. So pick a card daily and just read it in your own practice. You can do a reminder for it. L, look for the positive in yourself and others. And then yourself part is really important too, because I mean, you know, we can go into a whole discussion about what we all do with self-talk sometimes and how we tear ourselves down. So look for the positive in yourself and others. A, acknowledge and appreciate often. And I mentioned that before, you do it with the people you're with, but also a potential employer or other people's. And as Dara mentioned, even in a thank you note, I mean, really acknowledge people for whatever they showed up in the interview that you had. I appreciate your openness to my ideas or whatever that would be.
And also yourself, right?
yourself.
Acknowledge and appreciate at the end of the night,
Yeah.
doing a reflection, right? Did you have the courage to go on that interview, regardless of the outcome?
And then the and is notice teachable moments. As Dara said, this stuff is pretty deep. It's kind of why I went into this as well. These cards are powerful, and you start to really look at yourself through a different framework. And, I can pick a card and I'll pick the same card a week later. It's different. It resonates very different in different ways. So how does this apply to you in your life or in a situation that you're in at the moment? And notice those kinds of teachable moments all the time. And we do virtues picks all the time, and it leads to some fascinating discussions about how it relates to people and what it brings up for them. So we do it on team meetings all the time. So just the PLAN, and we can share that a little bit, somewhere to your website if you want to post that somewhere.
And also, maybe I appreciate your thoughtfulness sharing the plan. The notice teachable moments. Teachable moments is also the second strategy of the Virtues Project. And what that means is when things didn't exactly go as we had hoped, instead of beating ourselves up about it, we look at perhaps the virtue that was missing. And maybe we could have called on a little bit more moderation instead of talking on and on and on, or some more compassion, empathy, etc.
Yeah, this is good because I'll tell you, in my own personal experiences, the words that make me think, the virtues that I read, and even with my virtue cards, just like Dave said, I'll look at the word excellence. It'll mean something different to me based on what just happened, what just transpired with the person I just had a conversation with. So really is worth the self-discovery of how does this word ring with me today, and tomorrow how does it ring with me, and we can grow through discovering our virtues and self-talking through them. I love the fact that we read the cards and we read them out loud. I tell people day in and day out, the best way to get value from content is to read it out loud. Now it freaks people out when I'm reading, my romance novels out loud, but maybe I don't do those out. But so good stuff. Let's move on to the other point. We take our virtues. We are who we are. We need to understand our virtues. We need to use our characters the best way possible. How can we take some of these strategies and ace that interview, ace that conversation, create the best first impression?
So I think that's a beautiful question. And if you're purposeful, which I know that you all are, or you wouldn't be having lunch with us today. I still want to know what you're having for lunch. Anyways, if you're purposeful and you do your due diligence on the company organization that you're having an interview with, and you go in and you start by acknowledging them for their virtues, right? The reason that you felt called to having an opportunity to work with Goodwill for their commitment of generosity and service or humanity, right? That's going to create that positive affect. And so you start right then and there. And then also just to be able to identify, take an inventory. What are some of your strength virtues? And how do you practice them? And especially for the role or roles in which you're applying for. And then maybe even just some humility and looking at, all right, so what's an area of growth? What's a virtue that you could strengthen? And how might you choose to strengthen that? This is going to apply not just in your job and in every relationship that you're in. And then also to be thinking about some of the boundaries, right? Just know with confidence what your yes is so that you can say no to things that may not serve you. Because if you say yes to something that you don't really mean yes around, then are you going to be able to really be committed and stay the course? And then what's going to honor your truth or your spirit, right? So that when you are on purpose, that joy meaning, that's going to help you to excel with excellence. When love and skill work together, expect a masterpiece. And then the last strategy of the Virtues Project is a companioning process. It's actually a way to listen yourself into your own solution. So just take time to imagine what it's like being in that position. And if it feels like it's something that you really want, then walk around where you live, acting as if you have that responsibility of that job and you know what it's like, and you're in that place of confidence and with enthusiasm and service, so that when you either, God willing, one day get to walk in face to face, or you're no longer in the waiting room on Zoom, that it's just who you are and you're ready to rock and roll. I hope that made sense.
Teddy, there?
Teddy, we
You're
lost
muted.
you.
I wonder if there is a document or some information somewhere that maybe lists some key virtues that are highly relevant to specific roles. What's the maybe for someone's perspective, the top 10 virtues for a sales leader? What's the top 10 virtues for a customer service person?
That's a
That
really,
Absolutely. So that's a really thoughtful question. Oh, sorry. Thank
No.
you. So you're right. The different roles, there are different virtues. And Marty Seligman, who is like founder of positive psychology, right? When you have that positive mindset, as a salesperson, if you're optimistic, then you're just going to keep going. It doesn't matter how many no's, there's a yes somewhere. If optimism isn't one of your strength virtues, you probably want to find another job where your pay isn't, founded on like how much you sell.
Yeah.
If you're in the healthcare or education, compassion, empathy are two virtues that you need to be really strong. But in order to prevent burnout, right, and compassion fatigue, then you also need the virtue of detachment. And detachment doesn't mean that you don't care when it's a virtue. It means being able to balance thinking and feeling so that you don't take on other people's stuff. Yeah. So how about in other businesses, baby? What do you think are some of the
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Answering the question that you were talking about, Teddy, is about how do the virtues apply. I mean, one of the things is really knowing, and Dara mentioned this, is doing some research and knowing what that position entails, and really highlighting your strengths. I mean, some of the lists, resilience, empathy, humility, commitment. I mean, they all play in different ways depending on the job that's there. So knowing what your job's looking for, and at the end of the day, they have a customer or a stakeholder that they're serving. Even if you're in an accounting profession, you've got a group of stakeholders. So really understanding how to frame it in that way. And I'm going to go back to that one thing that Dara said, and I've said it as well, is giving the evidence. So sort of, I am. I mean, tactful might even be one. I am resilient, and here's what it looks like, and here's what it would look like in your organization in different ways. So I could go through different job descriptions, but I mean, in accounting, it's accountability, it's diligence, it's things like that. In sales, it's a different set of skills. You want somebody who's enthusiasm, like Dara said, is optimism. You want somebody who's resilient, who can take no for an answer and things like that. In management, you want somebody who's understanding and open. It's a different set of skills that they're looking for. Caring might be one, and things like that. So there's a whole range. Creativity is one that shows up in a lot of the creative design. So what does creativity look like? Well, there's a whole way of looking at it, and here's how it shows up in that particular job. So I actually like that idea. It's a really interesting idea of kind of listing out what are the top 5 to 10 virtues that would play out in each job area. So I think it's, it's important, because the other thing is the employers can use this in their own ways. Like, hey, team, we need to really build on our creativity. What can we do to start looking at more creativity in our organization, for example? And that's a way that employers can use these ways in their own worlds.
And I asked that question because I'm thinking, man, wouldn't it be great if I was at least had some clarity for this kind of role? The organization is looking for these kind of people. I need to be able to demonstrate my virtues in that context. But I also know that this type of role needs these other virtues. So in my conversation, I can talk about stories that demonstrate those virtues, and that just elevates you to a whole nother level in the picking order. So, Dara, another thought?
Yeah, so wise discernment, and thank you for your empathy saying that, yes, I did have a thought. So there are several virtues that cut across for everybody. And at the top of that is honesty and trustworthiness.
Yeah.
Right? So trustworthiness is the foundation of all human virtues.
Yeah.
And so we really, people, they don't want to hire you if you're not going to be honest, number one. And there are opportunities for you to grow in developing your skills and also in your virtues and your capacities. But as Daniel Goleman would say, it's your emotional intelligence, which is your character strength, which is much more important than just your academic or intellectual intelligences.
Yeah.
And absolutely, Kevin, so virtues-based companion to the Clifton Strength Finders, right? And so if you look at the Clifton Strengths, there are many virtues that are constellations or that come in flocks within each of the descriptions of those strengths.
Yeah, and then just going back to the person who's on the Galaxy A6, do virtues equal skill sets? There are, in some ways, there's those hard skill sets, from marketing skill sets, but then there's also the softer skills. I don't necessarily like to look at softer skills and call it that, but there are also softer skills, that people are looking for in education. They call it the whole child. There's well-being. There's just different ways of framing it. But
intelligence.
Emotional intelligence is how they talk about it. So they are skills, but they're not those. You don't go to an MBA school and get them in some ways, but you learn them through life, and there's other ways of learning those kind of skills. And we do talk about ways to cultivate your virtues. There are ways. These are practices like anything else. You're constantly learning and developing these. You have to practice them and use them and understand how they work.
And there is in business, there's a lot of research right now that says you can learn those other skills, but when you master these virtues or these emotional intelligences, that's what's going to keep you in leadership roles, and also just being able to do a really thoughtful and meaningful job to work with excellence.
I don't like the phrase soft skills either. I think it diminishes the importance of that. I use this perspective of, I want to understand the human. Let me understand this human who is sitting in front of me. And that includes their passion, their virtues, their character, their ideals. And as I understand this person, then I can figure out how do I apply and insert that person in my organization to work on these hard skills. So
that's really, it's an interesting way of looking at it, Teddy. And I think, unfortunately, when you look at those skills, so you use the word soft skills, you use the word virtues, all of them kind of come with a label and something pre-attached to them. So, but it is really who you are. And it sometimes feels touchy-feely, but at the end of the day, it really is the most critical thing when you're looking for a job or you're hiring somebody. So to describe it in a way that's approachable, that doesn't feel like, it's kind of too out there, has always been a challenge. I think even the founders of the Virtues Project, we named our company Virtues Matter. And we said, is that really what we want to do? And we said, yeah, it really is, because virtue's been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And it's, and there's a lot that's attached to it, but it really is your nobility. It's what you are and who you are.
So let's go ahead, Dara.
Use a language that's going to work for you, right?
Yeah.
And soft skills are not easy, right? They're actually the harder skills to cultivate. And let's just start with the end in mind. So, when you are no longer breathing and there are people there honoring you, are they going to say, really great at Excel spreadsheets, right? Was really, just never got a speeding ticket? Probably not. They're probably going to describe you in these same terms, right? That you are really loyal, a loyal companion, or that you are really generous with your service, going out of your way to be helpful. That's all that we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of part of the reason that we're alive and what makes us human.
So let's do one more idea that came to mind just now. So we got 39,000 people listening to us talk right now. And a huge percentage of these folks are looking for a job, or maybe they're in their own business and they're looking for their next gig. Because I know some of the folks on here are similar to me. We're always looking for our next gig, our next opportunity, our next client, et cetera, et cetera. How do we use our virtues to stay positive? How do we look at this whole idea about, taking care of ourselves when we're in dealing with COVID, dealing with all the stuff we got to deal with, dealing with looking for a job. How does this help us, Dave?
Absolutely. So, let me just, but Jessica, are you going to respond?
Oh, no, I was actually going to reply to what Joseph said a few moments ago, is actual versus talk. And it's like, you can say you have these things, but actually showing them is really, really powerful too. And when you live them, I practice these things and I do a lot with them. It's the job that I do. And I won't tell you, a lie. 2020 was a very hard year for everybody. And I had my own set of challenges that were really made it difficult too. So perseverance is actually, we always say the first card that you pick is like the one that really is a strength virtue. And for whatever reason, my life has dealt me perseverance. It's just pushing forward. So, it is a practice every day and doing things on a regular basis and, reminding yourself that, and I listen to other personal development coaches and things like that. It's like, bad day, boom, go to sleep, wake up and do it all over again, so part of it is just, is doing a practice and staying strong, staying perseverance, using positive tools to keep yourself in a good way and go forward. So yeah, that's just one of my practices. There's more, but.
And so thank you for your enthusiasm and your moderation, because we have like 2 minutes. And so Jessica, you're right. Never getting a speeding ticket is a huge testament to your soft skills, because it's self-discipline, it's honesty, trustworthiness, or maybe it's just luck, but we won't go there. Okay, so.
Jessica is my sister from a whole nother family.
Okay.
I recognize the last name. I figured out, I was like, so she's probably a passenger when you're getting the speeding tickets.
So, and here's the thing, do a virtues pick every day, right? When I get nervous or whatever, even if it's in the middle of the keynote, I just shake my phone, I see the word, I'll be like, oh, here's perseverance, right? It's just there. And that mindful practice, just 3 nice deep breaths and breathing in your strengths. Right?
Dude, this is good. This is absolutely great. And I absolutely encourage everyone, at the very least, get the free samples of the Virtue Matters card. I promise you they're well worth investing time. If you want even more, go ahead and give Dave and Daryl the 99 cents or the $1.99, whatever it is. They're worth it. I'm telling you to get that. Dave, Daryl, package this up for us. Give us just a big picture and a condensed statement. What are some really important perspectives that you want to make sure everyone takes away from today's chat?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, who you are, if you go to the Virtues Card app and you look at the list, that's really who you are. And it's about remembering your inherent nobility and arising to act as if you already have all this, because you do.
Yeah, and for me, even when you're, when you're looking for a job, when you have a job, it's all about relationships. From the moment that you start the interview process to when you send the thank you note, it's about your connection to that person. So, one is listening to them, identifying their positive, acknowledging them for that, knowing your own, connecting to yourself, your own positivity. So having a good relationship with yourself. So staying connected is really one. And one of my favorite quotes is I working at British Embassy is a Winston Churchill is never, 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 never. I think it's 5 nevers, give up. And it's just having the resilience, and it's like we're in unusual times right now, and just having the tenacity to know that you can get through it and staying positive.
Yeah, good, really good chat, really good. Randy, any thought in your mind, buddy?
I do. I've got a couple. First of all, I have likewise never had a speeding ticket. So so far, so good. And I've also never been in a car accident, whether as a driver or as a passenger. So Teddy, watch out. My insurance is paid up. I know I just jinxed myself.
You just jinx yourself, buddy.
but so let me throw that out there. All right. So we've got a lot of folks on here who are job hunters. And we have people who watch the show after it is live and they're job hunters. So let me offer up a suggestion for you that ties in with the virtues talk we've had today. And that is coach your references. Coach your references. So I go on the interview and I'm interviewing and I try to do my best to cite examples of all right, I won't call them soft skills, but my virtues, or citing examples of how I am diligent, how I am all these things. But you know what? Anybody can say that about themselves, but what I need to do is get on the phone with the references and say, hey, I had a great interview with company X. Here are some areas that I think are of importance to them. Not telling you what to say, but just kind of be prepared that you may want to speak to these virtues. And so I call it coaching your references. You don't put words in their mouth, but I think it's important to do what you can that's within your control. And this is one of those things, is to be able to help guide somebody who wants to help you in the first place. But yeah, I took the Clifton Strengths. We brought that up earlier today. We actually had a Gallup, it's, I guess, certified coach. Is that Malcolm's role? And my main strength was positivity. And that ties in also with the work that Goodwill does. And many people come to Goodwill and don't have hope for whatever reason. Bad choices, poop happens, COVID happens, and they don't have that vision. They can't see beyond just, I need to eat tonight, or I'm going to lose my home next month, or whatever. And sometimes the people at Goodwill, I'm not saying me necessarily, but people like me at Goodwill, sometimes we are that light for people. And to the degree that we can offer that hope, and to be able to show examples of how other people perhaps have also been in that same situation, but that together we can work through it. So again, I think a lot of this barrier that we run into is that self-talk and the stuff that goes on behind this bald head and in the brain. And we talk ourselves out of a lot of stuff. I can't do this. I'm not worthy. That, what do we call that? The imposter syndrome that we're going to talk about in a few weeks. We've got a neuroscientist that's going to come on and talk about that. So Teddy, you better get your thesaurus ready, because
they were coming in to help you, not me.
That one's going to be interesting. Going to be a big long syllable discussion. But now she's a hoot. She's going to break it down so even a liberal arts guy like me can understand it. So again, optimism, positivity, coach your references, and cite examples. Don't just say that I'm this or I'm that. Be prepared with a short version, whether it's on your resume or also face-to-face. And I think that'll help you, because again, it's competitive, and they're going to go with the person that best fits in their mind, their culture, and their skill set that they need, hard skills.
That's why it's guidance, Randy.
Hey, do you want to, before I tell my story, do you want to introduce who our speaker is for next week?
I'm happy to.
As I'm preparing.
Yes. Mark Owens will join us. And for those that may not be familiar, he is the president and CEO of Greater Winston-Salem. And again, if you're not familiar with what that is, it used to be called the Winston-Salem Chamber of Commerce. And so again, this fella is got his ear to the ground in terms of economic development, companies coming here, retaining companies, growing companies. And we're going to talk about some of the initiatives. They've got some really cool stuff that's going on behind the scenes. But here's the twist. Mark is passionate about workforce development, passionate about that. And when I asked about his why, because I talked to him yesterday, he was, let's just say he's ready. And there's a lot going on in the business world. We're going to get, straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, if anybody's going to know, it's the head of the Greater Winston-Salem. So Mark will join us next week. It'll be a big show. Looking forward to it.
Good. I am too.
Yeah.
So here's my story. I read, Randy reads resumes all the time. I look at LinkedIn profiles all the time, and I look at a LinkedIn profile, and I'm looking at my, my Virtues Matter slide deck here, or app that, I got, and I'm looking at some of these words: humility, grace, purposefulness, self-discipline, service, compassion, cooperation. I see these words people write on their LinkedIn profile, and, basically listing their virtues all the time. They list what we in the recruiting world call their soft skills. And that is and I'm echoing what Randy said, it's the wrong way to present who you are. You need to take and write a sentence statement or a 2-sentence statement that demonstrates your accountability, demonstrates your integrity, demonstrates your teamwork, demonstrates your excellence, et cetera, et cetera. That's when people read a sentence or two that demonstrates your virtue, your character, who you are as a human in the context of business, it is far more meaningful. Is this easy? No. Is it beneficial? Yes, because people want to hear the stories that demonstrate your skills, including your virtues and your character. So I implore all of you to think that way. And I also wrote down this note for myself: get to know thyself. One of the things I just committed to do for myself as a function of this conversation today is I'm going to go through my virtues cards, and I'm going to look at perseverance, and I'm going to self-evaluate. I'm going to ponder, what does that mean to me? I'm going to be more purposeful about looking at I'm going to use the word soft skills, my virtues, my character, and I'm going to evaluate how courteous am I? Okay, and what does that mean to me? And what does that mean to other people? And is there something I can do to improve myself in that area? So I really encourage you to do this, know thyself. We've had this conversation before with someone else on the show, and then truly look at yourself and figure out, who am I and how can I be a better I? Dara, Dave, thanks a lot.
Oh my God, Teddy and Randy, thank you for your generosity of time, your enthusiasm, uplifting everybody, and your wise discernment, giving just real beautiful takeaways. May I just add one last little piece to what you said? Or are we done?
Go right ahead. What you got?
Okay, so two things. One about on the LinkedIn profile or your resume, giving the evidence of the virtue, right? Not just making the list. And also include the virtue, because a virtue is a transferable skill. If you have determination in this way, this way, this way, then, and people see it and you acknowledge it in yourself, then you can take it and apply it in other circumstances. So that's number one. And number two is the idea of doing a reflection with the back of the cards. Mm-hmm. It says you are practicing the virtue when you da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Don't use it to beat yourselves up with, but just use it to say, am I? When am I?
Or
how can I? How do I? Right? And you can just change it to the questions to help you dig more deeply. Yeah. Maybe last words?
Yeah, just to all the listeners and everyone out looking for a job, we talked a little bit about hope and optimism, idealism, and looking at that. And it's like, if any time, these are the times to really draw on those things. Because when you're out of job, I mean, we are so connected, our identities to, our job sometimes, and we don't have it, But, look at the positive in yourselves and just know that this is a part of a process, and, it will change. And, we wish you the best. And, thanks for being part of the show today. I guess that's really everything.
Super great.
And thank you for our hosts for always just with your generosity and your spirit. I love working with you guys. So
thanks, buddy. Thank you, Daryl. Hey, look, we nailed it, Randy. 12:59, buddy.
Right on. Right on.
All right. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks a lot, Daryl, Dave. Take care.
Bye, all.
So much
Have a great week.
gratitude to you all.